This video will look at doors and windows. We'll start with doors. On the Architecture tab, we'll select the Door tool. In this pivotal type selector, as we've discussed previously, we see that we have one family loaded. Within that family, there are several types available. We see a 3-foot by 7-foot door that we'll use. And when we move our cursor out into the drawing area, we see a circle with a slash through it. This means that in that location you cannot place a door. We'll notice as we move our cursor over a wall, a door temporarily shows up near our cursor. This is because doors are wall hosted. So a door needs a wall to exist. If a wall moves, the door will move with it. If a wall is deleted, the door will be deleted with the wall. So we can go ahead and click, and we notice that the wall automatically is trimmed out, and in this case a tag was placed because tag on placement is turned on. In Revit 2013, this is turned off by default, so you'll see the tag on placement not selected. So as we move our cursor to another wall, depending on which side of the wall our cursor is favoring, will determine the swing of the wall, and then by pressing the space bar on the keyboard, that determines the hand. Does the door open from left to right or right to left? So we can go ahead and click and place another door. We can place one more on this interior wall. We'll press escape. We notice that the door tag can be selected and moved. It is a separate element from the door. We can select the tag and delete it at any time. The information in tags is simply coming from the element being tagged, so you never lose information by deleting a tag. If we select a door and go back to the type selector, so now we're looking at the type selector in the context of having selected something that's already in the model versus something we're about to place in the model. And if we wanted to change the size, we could pick any one of these options. Now, we notice that there are several 6'8" tall doors, these 80-inch options. We might not want those to show up in the context of this commercial project, or vice versa. You might not want the 7-foot doors to show up in a residential project. So what we're going to do is delete the 6'8" doors. So I'm pressing escape a couple times to clear that. I'm going to go down here to the project browser and expand families. Then I'm going to expand the doors category, and we see the one single family that's currently loaded into this project for doors. And then here are the various types. So I can select one of those types and simply hit the delete key on the keyboard and get rid of all the 6'8" options. Now for a commercial project, we might not want some of these narrower doors either. Oftentimes a 3-foot door is the minimum door you use for accessibility, but there are some situations where you might have something like that, so we'll just leave those for now. Now we can leave that families category open or close it, it doesn't matter. We'll select the door and then go back to our type selector, and we see the list is now smaller. Now if we want a different size door, I'll hit escape. With the door still selected, I'm going to hit edit type. This allows me to duplicate one of the current types, so the 3-foot by 7-foot door, I'm going to hit duplicate. It always puts a number on the end just in case we don't change that, so that it's a different name. And then we're going to make it a 3'6" door, or 42 inches. You could type 3'6" if you wanted to, or 42 inches, just following what's already been established as a pattern. So just by having duplicated a type and creating a new name has no effect on these values down below that were copied. So we want to make sure that we change the actual width. So this is the value that literally drives the width of the door in the model. So we can type 42 inches and then click into another field, and we see it automatically makes it 3'6". Now we hit OK and we see the size of the door increased. So that's all you have to do to make a new type. We can swap any door in the model now back and forth between those sizes. If we go to the door command again in the future, we see that that new size is available. Next we'll move on to look at windows. We're going to select the window command. This works very much like the door command. We have similarly one family loaded into the project, several types. We'll pick this larger one, and then depending on which side of the wall our cursor is favoring, kind of positions the window within the wall. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of randomly place a few windows here real quick. Click the modify button to cancel the window command. And now I can use the align tool, similar to how we aligned this interior wall with this exterior wall previously. I can select the midpoint of this window. Most families have a midpoint within them or a center line. It's not visible, but when we use the align tool or the dimension tool, we can actually select it and see it highlight here. Again, we want to pick the thing we don't want to move first, and then we pick the element we do want to move. In this case, maybe we do want to lock that relationship, so we click this padlock. I'll click modify, click to select the window, and then I'll use the move command just to show an illustration of moving this window causes that window to move, and moving the other window would cause this window to move. They're both connected. I can select undo to undo that. Another thing we could do is if we wanted these windows equally spaced, we could use the dimension tool. So I'm just dimensioning a string across here, and then the last pick is somewhere where there's nothing to click on to position the line, the dimension line. Then I can click this equality button to make those windows equally spaced. Now I can select that dimension string and delete it. Revit has the ability to maintain that equal spacing even after the dimension is deleted, which would happen if you hit OK. Otherwise we're going to, in this case, select unconstrain so that the dimension's gone and the equal distance is also gone. So if one of these side walls moved, the windows would no longer be equally spaced on the wall. If we go to a 3D view and then click on our view cube, the little frisbee across the bottom to kind of spin around our building, we notice that unlike doors, windows are up off the floor a certain amount. When we select a window, we notice in the properties palette, which is basically considered instance parameters, this specific window has a sill height of 1 foot. Now I could change that, just moving my cursor out into the drawing window applies it. I can see just this one window raised up off the floor. So that's how it's an instance parameter. It only applies to that one instance. Now with that same window selected, if I go to edit type, these values apply to every window that is called a 36 by 72 inch window. So if I were to change something here, it would change all of them. This default sill height actually only applies one time when the window's initially being placed. So changing this wouldn't actually have any effect right now. So I'll hit cancel and modify. So we notice then that the windows, even though we placed them in plan, were placed 1 foot up off the floor. We can control what that value is initially, and then we can also control it later via the instance properties or the properties palette. The last thing that we'll mention is that we can load additional content into our project. Well, let's go to the architecture tab, and if we're in a command like the door command and we don't see a family that we want, while we're in this command, we notice on the ribbon a temporary tool has popped up that allows us to load additional content. So we're going to click this Load Family button, and it brings us to the default content folder for Revit, and we see this Doors folder, and then we see that there's several doors that we can load, such as this double flush. So this is a double door, and flush means that it doesn't have any raised panels on it. It's just a flush door. And now that door is in our project. So I could go ahead and place one. If I hit modify, I could select another door that's already been placed and swap it out with that new door type. Same goes for windows. You can load additional window types. And then if Revit doesn't provide what you need, another option is to go to the Insert tab and type something in the Autodesk Seek search box, which then would open your web browser and show you some options on Autodesk Seek's website, which oftentimes has various manufacturers who have created Revit content listed there. So that's a quick look at using doors and windows in Revit.